Hi guys. Well, it's been 2 years since I made some kooky paper. Now, if you were with me back then, you'll remember that you may remember that I made some kooky paper out of really thin paper scraps and just random size and shape scrap paper just to use it up. Now, if you don't remember that video or you're new to my channel, I'll pop the link to that video down below and pop over and have a look. Now, that video was a little bit of an experiment where I was making some kooky handmade paper, and it turned out really awesome, especially the thin strips. Now, at the time I just had a tiny little silicone mat, but now I've got a bigger one. So I'm going to make some more kooky paper because I have, as you can see, this accounting folder. Not just one, I have many, the whole set of these, plus some other accounting books that I want to use up the paper. So I've done quite well so far. I've used up that much, and I will use this whole folder. All these dividers, every page, I will reuse the actual folder. Look, it's very nice. Got a nice rounded spine, big. I'll make a big chunky journal out of this. Anyway, oh gosh, I've got nowhere to even put this on my desk. Anyway, this paper, this accounting paper, it's really, really thin. When you coffee dye it, it comes up really nice to use for collaging or stamping on. But I've got so much of it, I really want to use it up. Now, this particular folder, the paper is nice and yellowed. I love the colour. But anyway, my last batch of kooky paper 2 years ago, that was a bit of an experiment that day. And I did make some more after that off camera. It turned out really, really nice. But that was all scraps. In this case, I'm making scraps because I really want to use up some of this accounting paper, tax accounting. Sorry, Debbie. Debbie's one of my subscribers and she works in tax accounting. I remember these folders years ago because I've worked in tax, finance, accounting my whole life as well. These folders, oh, it was awful. We'd get these constant updates where you had to, you know, legislation would change and tax rulings and all that, and you would have to remove certain pages and replace them with the new pages. I hated it. It used to take forever. Now they're all online, which is great. Now, the other papers I'm going to use is if you've got these encyclopedias, you will know how hard it is to use up these. They're really thick. This one, as you can see, I've used a fair bit of it. But they're really thick. And again, like those accounting pages, the paper's really thin. So great for collaging if you want to dye it or stamp on it or paint it or anything. But I've been using the little black and white pictures out of it, just to, you know, on tags and journal cards and stuff. The cover I will also reuse. When I cut out a little picture, like if I were to use this picture, the rest of this, the rest of that paper, I've got a tub that I throw those little scraps into, and we'll eventually use those as well. Mostly, I used to use them for handmade paper, like proper handmade paper, but haven't made any in a while. But these encyclopedias, yeah, there's so many pages in one encyclopedia because they're so thin, and it just takes forever to use one up. So I'm trying to use those up as well. Now, unlike my last kooky paper, which was all ready-made scraps, like I said, this one I'm going to rip up some strips and use those. So I thought I would just take you through the whole process because it turns out really, really nice. And it's just a great way to use up paper, like scrap paper. Oh, hold on. These edges, these ones, they've got those little hard pokey bits because of the glue. I'm just going to trim them off because I don't like those in my kooky paper. Now, I don't know why it was called kooky paper 2 years ago. I don't know why I named it that. I can't remember how that came about. I'd say it was probably my friend James. James, I'm going to blame you. It's such a dumb name, but that's just what it's called now. I have to keep it that. Okay. I'm going to get my silicone mat. Okay, now, in the video 2 years ago, like I said, it was a tiny little pink silicone mat. But, looky. Kirsten from Penny Rose Journal, she saw my kooky paper video and she made some, but she used this giant big blue mat. And I must say, she got addicted. She is now the kooky paper queen. She has made so much kooky paper now. She got so addicted to it. And my little pink silicone mat, I could only do 1 page at a time. So I got a few of these. When Kirsten told me about these mats, actually, this is what they are, if you're interested. They're really big. 60 centimeters by 40 centimeters. You can do like more than 1 page at a time because it's so big. It's awesome. Anyway, I've got quite a few of these now, so I do a whole bunch, and I can fit 70 of these mats on my table in my craft room, my center table. So it's great. I can do a whole bunch at once. Now, these we bought at Kmart, that Enco brand pet feeding mat large. If you're interested. Overseas, I'm not sure what where you'd get them. Anyway, so I've pre-ripped some paper. Now, if you want to see some more random ones, pop over to Kirsten's channel. I'll put the link to her channel below, because she's using lots of random junk papers, which is what I originally did, but I just want to get rid of some of these papers. Honestly, I'm so sick of these encyclopedias and accounting book pages kicking around. Okay. So, I did rip some yellow up, but this yellow is from Stamp Auction Catalogue. It's in German. I've got some of those for, you know, collaging and that, but I'll save those for another project. Okay. This mat's so big. I know you won't be able to see the whole thing, but hopefully you can see enough. Now, I've just got some PVA glue and water mixture. Don't ask me how much water. I know Kirsten said in her video she uses 50-50, but for me, I've got a few different PVA glues, some which are older that are really thick and some which are quite runny. So it just depends what your starting glue is like. Okay, now just get a consistency that you like. I don't like it too runny. Anyway, then all you do, okay, put some glue on. This is the dumbest paper, honestly, but you're just gonna love it, honestly. It turns out so good. And you just basically cover your mat with glue. I'm going to put a little bit more water. Just a drop. Okay, now I'll just show you a little bit of this because I'm sure it's going to bore you to death. But yeah, I'm just going to use these two papers on this batch of kooky paper. And then I'll do a different video with some more random papers. But Kirsten is so addicted to making this now that you can pop over to her channel and you'll see a whole bunch of videos where she's made kooky paper. Whoops. Let me see what you're seeing. Okay. Also, it's if you use a big flat wide brush is better. My one is actually inside still drying in the laundry. I used it for some coffee dyed papers yesterday. I don't have set brushes for set things. I use them all for everything: paint, coffee dye, glue. Now, when you glue them down, I do a couple of layers. I don't know how many layers because I don't count them. I just wing it. Okay, now I'm going to forward this so that you don't get bored watching me glue down stupid little strips of paper. But I will do a little bit first so you kind of get the idea of how I do it. I was sitting doing this the other day and my husband's like, what the hell are you doing now? He's seen some weird things over the years, but he hasn't seen me sitting there gluing papers like this. I don't know if he saw my original kooky papers. Yeah, the original ones, I use those really thin strips that we all get stuck with. And that particular one turned out so good. It was like little wooden floorboards. I love how it turned out. And it feels really nice. Now, these papers, what am I going to do with them? Well, these ones I will probably put in a journal as journal pages, just because I'm working on a journal at the moment. Working on a few. And this one I'm going to add some paint for colour. I didn't do that in my last video. Now, a few people did ask me what did I do with the kooky papers from the last video. I sent one of them in a happy mail. Actually, I may have sent it to you, Kirsten. I think that may have been what got you started on the kooky paper. I can't remember. I think that was the little one with strips. The other one with really random pieces of paper, I actually painted that one. I was making a little steampunky notebook. I did film it, but I never finished it. So I still do have the video somewhere, I think. And I will go back and find it and dig that out and show you. I don't know why it never got finished. Like most projects in my room. Okay, so you can see I just do a couple of layers. Depends how thick you want it. I want to use these as regular journal pages. So I'm not going to make it too thick. Okay, I think I'll speed it up now. You get the idea. Okay, so when you've covered the lot, now I'm actually going to put some tissue paper on top. Actually, not tissue paper, I'm putting napkin. Now, originally, my original kooky paper video, I used the layer of the napkin. You know, when we use napkins to decoupage, we peel the 2 or 3 layers apart and we use the top pretty layer in our project, and then you're left with those 2 white thin layers. I used those in the original video. This one though, I've got some brown serviettes or napkins from a takeaway store that I'm using. I can't remember where we got these ones. We're at some takeaway place, and they were brown napkins, and I was like, ooh, I'm gonna save a few of those. Like you do. Now they're quite small, so this one will be a little bit patchy. I have got a few others, kooky papers, that I've already done, which I will show you. Those ones I also used a brown napkin. I'll show you once I've done this. Those ones I also used a brown napkin, but the napkin was quite large. I think it filled up, 3/4 of the mat, and then I used part of a second one. Now, of course, you don't have to put a napkin down. I mean, I'm just doing it. I feel like it holds it all together, and when it dries, it gives it like a really nice texture. It feels really nice. Now, I didn't care if my napkin or my papers underneath got wrinkled. Whoops. See that one? I've been a bit too heavy-handed. I've got a little hole in it. That's okay. Don't be as rough as me. Okay. Probably helped to do it in smaller pieces, but I'm also a bit heavy-handed with the glue. Probably don't need as much. But once you've done a few, you'll get the hang of it. You'll get a feel for what you like. That's why, don't sweat the little things. You know, people, I always see comments by people, which glue should I use? Which one's better? How many layers of this, or you know, what sort of paper is that? What thickness is the paper? What color ink? Like, don't worry about the little details like that, because you probably like what the person you're watching on YouTube is making, but you know, it's never going to end up the same, even if you use exactly the same papers and inks and colors and glue and paper thickness. Just use what you've got. Use whatever you have. Like, if you're going to make some kooky paper, you don't need to use brown napkins on top. Use tissue paper, use pretty flowery napkins, use sewing pattern paper. Use whatever you've got. And it's all about experimenting. Like, you know, like I said, Kirsten puts 50-50 glue and water, because that's probably whatever glue PVA glue she's using, 50-50 is a good consistency. For me, my glue at the moment, it's really thick. But I don't like it too runny, so I think I still used under less water. But I don't know how much I use. I just tip some PVA in your jar, put some water in, give it a shake. You know, if it's too runny, add some more glue. If it's not runny enough, add some more water. Like I said, just experiment. Have fun. There's no right or wrong way to do anything. That's why I love junk journals. You know, when people say they're not crafty or they're not artsy, or, you know, Carrie. I'm just stirring Carrie from Carrie at the Paper Monkey, because she's new to crafting, and she made a few comments that she's not crafty or arty. And I told her, I don't believe that. I think everyone has a little bit of artsy in them. A little bit of artsy, a little bit of crafty. But it's just, we're all different at it. Okay. You just have to experiment. Now, there's a couple of ones that I've already got done that I'll show you in a minute. I put some paint on them. I've got this, you may have seen this in a previous video. I've got this copper paint. It was a spray one from, also from Kmart. Years ago I bought this. They had little packs of silver, copper, and gold. 3 little spray bottles in the one pack. And I did like the consistency of this paint, and I did like the colour, and I like how it dries. But the spray bottles never worked. And I always meant to tip it into a better spray bottle, but if you know me, I'm so hopeless at getting things done since I left work. I say, yeah, I'll do it, and I mean to do it, and I just don't. And then every time I use it, I say, oh, I really should put this in a different bottle. But then I just never do. Now, I didn't put paint on my original kooky papers. I left them raw, just as is. But these ones, I'm just going to splatter with some of this paint. See, it's quite thick now. So the spray bottle won't work, but it never worked originally. They were such crap bottles. Anyway, my glue is still wet. I don't care. You can, if you prefer, you can wait until your glue is dry and then paint it. I don't consider this painting. I just want to use some glue up. So I just want to use some of that spray paint up. So I'm just going to brush on a bit of this copper paint to use it up. And when it dries, don't forget, you rarely use this whole sheet as it is. You chop it up for other stuff. So now my problem with this is I always muck about with it and then I'll make holes in my napkin. Look, it's probably best to wait until the glue's dry, in all honesty, but okay. And don't worry, you're not creating a piece of art. It's just glued paper scraps with a napkin stuck on top. Don't worry if it looks ugly now. When it dries, it's going to be so nice. Okay, so I will leave this to dry overnight. But I do have 2 dry ones that I will show you. Let me grab those. Okay. Now, these are the 2 that I've already done. I don't think the colour is showing up on the camera very well. Okay, now I've just pulled a little corner up because I wanted to see if it was dry. And because this is a silicone mat, it'll come up quite easy. Okay, that's one. This napkin was a lot darker than the other napkin. Okay, there's 2. Let me get rid of this. Okay, so these are the 2 that I did last night, just to show you. I don't think the colour is showing up very well on camera, but it feels beautiful, and it's like leathery, and it's very coppery. This is the back. it's good because this dried, because when you add the water to the PVA, it doesn't dry really shiny like just straight up PVA. And it feels great. And it's the same thickness all over. You know, if you're careful when you glue down your strips or your pieces. And you don't have to use strips. You can use any shape. I just did strips because it's quick and easy to rip up those damn encyclopedias. But look, I can't show you the colour on camera because it's just not showing up. Actually, that's probably a bit. Yeah, I don't think it shows up very well on camera for some reason. But they look really beautiful in real life. Let me put you back up there. Anyway, you're probably wondering what would you do with this? Lots of things. Like I said, pop over to Kirsten Penrose Journal's channel. She's been making and using a lot of these, but what I'll be doing with these two, actually I lie, I didn't just make 2 last night. I made 6 and I kept one mat spare so I could show you the gluing. It's very addictive. Anyway, what I might do with these two is use them in a journal I'm working on, and I might do a video tomorrow to show you how I've used them in that journal. Okay, that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.